This episode of Untold Stories is sponsored by Yield App, Cosmos Ecosystem, and Paraswap. You'll hear more about them later on in this episode. What is up, everyone? I am Charlie Shrem, and you are watching and listening Untold Stories. Wow, what a crazy episode we have for you today, where twice a week we get together, we get to dive deep with some of crypto's most influential leaders to find out how this movement really came to be. And not only that, as I'm understanding further, this industry is getting so complex, so fast, and all the pieces that are being created, I'm struggling sometimes to keep them all together for my own understanding. And so I'm more fervent about doing this show now more than ever. I'm recording 5 days a week because there's so much content and so much data and so many things that we need to unpack and understand. And like we know that one of the things that people have been talking about for years, and we all know with BitTorrent and Napster and everything, is data, right? Just going back to just the early days when we download music off the internet and how it was slow, and because you knew it was being downloaded from one server. And then there were things like BitTorrent, and we understood that with BitTorrent and some of these P2P, peer-to-peer networks of the 90s and early 2000s that a lot of us were playing around with, you actually can download files that were kept in pieces in millions of computers around the world. But the technology largely died there, and peer-to-peer networks and decentralized data went very centralized. It's controlled by the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Googles, and the Twitters of the world. All of our data is constantly being hacked and given away all the time, and there are trillion-dollar industries where they're making money off of us. And the simple fact is, I have no access to my medical records. The most important data that I would think that I want to own. How do you get it? Right? Like, I had a surgery 20 years ago. I have no way to check. Like, do I call the doctors? He's dead. Where is that data? It's probably somewhere. Someone's making money off of it, not me. I just want to know if I need to get another surgery for my eyes. So it's like this technology got so centralized. And when Bitcoin and Ethereum really were being in the early baby years, everyone was so excited about doing things like this in storage and Filecoin and so many others. But it's so difficult to do. And today on the show, I'm very excited to actually bring on one of my investment portfolio companies, the Cere Network. Cere is building out, and I really believe they'll probably be one of the only companies to do this, just because of the background of my two guests today. But the Cere Network is like one of the first decentralized data cloud platforms that's optimized for service data integration and collaboration. So the ability to like collect all the data using like a tokenized system, and then all that data is constantly being encrypted and kept safely and securely all over the world. But at the same time, artificial intelligence and gamification and loyalty and being able to earn money and doing all these different things with the data from a consumer level, but also from a business level. And then creating a plug-and-play system to allow consumers and governments and companies and corporations to just plug and play and do it. That's what the Cere Network is offering. And I'm joined today by Fred Jin and Kenzi Wang. Fred is the co-founder and CEO of the Cere Network, and Kenzi is also the co-founder. They both come from Silicon Valley and from the gaming world, AOL, crazy stuff. You are going to love this show. I am Charlie Shrem, and this show would not be possible today without my amazing producers and all of the folks and the writers and the booking agents and everyone who works for this show, the dozen people or so who work for Untold Stories. I love you guys. Thank you. And last but not least, Blockworks.co. Blockworks.co, the Blockworks Group. They are a media and production company that I trust. Without them, the show would not be here today. Enjoy Untold Stories. I want to start from the beginning and understand that, like, as the course of the internet came to be, and what we know the internet today is, and how we understand data, on
Mhm,
servers, and the basic understanding of it, you know, uh, from a laptop or a personal computer, your data is stored there, and then everyone,
mhm,
would understand things like the Apple Cloud, and there's all this lingo and understanding, and then um, we've become desensitized to the fact that our data is highly insecure, And then we read about some of these things like hacks all the time from retail stores to like credit agencies, and all our data is constantly being sold, like probably your and my data. It's a known. Everyone knows that anyone could go right now on the dark market and buy someone else's information, uh data, but it's not just like your name, address, social security number. And then furthermore, then the other day, I'm listening to the radio and they're saying, well, how much better would have coronavirus response been if there was a centralized database that housed all of your medical data from the minute you were born until now? And everyone's like, yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm saying, no, haven't we learned anything?
Hmm.
So why has building a decentralized data cloud traditionally been so difficult? It's always been touted as like one of the killer apps for Bitcoin and eventually crypto.
Hmm.
And so many companies have tried and failed and disappeared. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about the Cere network, and actually, one of the reasons I became an investor too, is because of your backgrounds, but kind of your approach of attacking specific industries within that like snowflake ecosystem. And I know I just
Sure.
threw a lot at you.
Hmm.
So feel free to kind of like unpack that all.
Yep.
And thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you.
Sure. Sure. Thank you for having us, Charlie. I think we're a big fan of yours, and I think you asked some very acute, um, astute questions, and would love to sort of just jumping in. So a little bit of background, right? So I started my career in Silicon Valley. My first job was, I was building visualization Windows products and web authoring tools for this company called NetObjects, which went public I think in 1999. So I think I have one of those sort of a careers where I was mostly focused on problem solving, and for say a dozen years or so, and mostly working for early Silicon Valley startups. So I see a lot of the pattern of how that data is migrating and uh, um, how the access and utility and people's relationship with it are changing. And then I think I spent about last dozen years or so just building digital native and applications, mobile and web applications, and app-based businesses. So I have another different perspective from an operator, from the
Hmm. Someone who needs it, not just someone who is building it.
exactly. So the key reason, I mean, and again, I think my very first job, actually my first task was writing these like database scripts that actually checks for data consistency. That actually, these are what we things that we call like triggers and store procedures. These are things that store at the lowest level of the inside the database that actually looks for certain data patterns and ensure that certain things are executed before some data is removed and things copyrighted. So I think this is definitely one area of strength. So I think the biggest hurdle as we see the migration pattern is one is at the cost of both having to ramp up the team to adapt to new knowledge or move to a different way of accessing data, right? So previously, I think in the first .com era, everybody had their own site-based oracles and
Yeah.
uh, you know, uh, DB2s and all these old database vendors, and eventually it became more and more consolidated towards a few different types of either whether it's enterprise or whether it's application startup purposeful databases. But you still have this issue a lot of data silos, so you have to sort of figure out how to extract the right data from these different data sets. And just the migration to the cloud, right? To cloud data service, and even that's taken more than 10 years, right, for it to get to where it is today. So that whole movement started a while back. So I think the biggest hurdle and why it's taken so long for us to get to where we're at today has really you need to have specific acute business needs that need to be solved by a different type of system that address specific, use cases. We all know that. I won't go into too much, the details, but I think unless the right technology, the right people help you adapt to that technology, and then the maturity of the technology itself, and then the cost, everything needs to sort of align
Yeah.
before the next generation can come online, right? So that kind of like that's just like dipping into question a little bit, and I'm happy to work with you to keep going down that path.
And I want to understand a little bit more, like which industries you see benefit the most from this. What type of examples you think would be like the first, the lowest hanging fruit? And Kenzie, thank you for coming on the show as well.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so I think we're mostly focused on consumer focused businesses, because one, this is area that we have good amount of experience in, and two is especially when we were running our apps and games and whatnot, we realized the challenges that we're doing is the same challenges that all of our partner gaming companies and other people in our space are faced with, which is understanding how to extract from all this information that all the data we're collecting, all this information over them. How do you lock into specific key behavior feedbacks, right? And how do you lock into the
Yeah, so
key
that's where the
actions?
artificial intelligence comes into play, right? So traditionally, you can't do that on these like single siloed type of systems.
Right.
And you brought up gaming. Your background is in gaming too.
Hmm.
Do you think the gaming industry is one that spends like copious amounts of money, time, and energy on just their back end infrastructure?
Yeah, yeah. So gaming company, it's one a special niche, but I think the most of the things that they do are usually very specific. Whether it's for Epic Games or whether it's for um, you know a, like Supercell type of very casual games. You have very different patterns, right? You have these games that are very much like console games. So I think that's a category on its own. I think what we're seeing, I think the huge opportunity ahead of us is that it doesn't matter what business you run today, right? You could be Pepsi, right? You could be Nike, you could be Sephora. Doesn't matter what business you run, you have to sort of think like a technology company. You have to sort of like really start to figure out how do you really unlock the value of the data of all your consumers, right? So
Yeah.
even if you're successful, like a company like say Pepsi, they don't know anything about me per se. I mean, unless they spend the money with Google or Facebook or some of the other platforms to try to engage me, right? They don't really own that direct relationship. So every brand is trying to develop their own, of course, cloud focused,
Sure.
data cloud, and then have the ability to quickly, not just gather information securely, but also figure out how to share that information securely across their, vendors and business partners, and then so that is where the hurdle is. It's the
And
lock
then
in on the right data sets.
that data can be kind of gamified and intelligence can be garnered with that data. So for example, just yesterday I was talking to a gentleman who's on the board of a very large movie theater chain in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And I just asked him, I said, "How are you doing? Are you
Mm-hmm.
surviving?" And I just went to the movies for the first time in like a year and a half, and it was so much fun. Like it was cool to go to a movie theater and
Mm-hmm.
sit down and watch a movie. Um, well, Florida never really closed in the first place. But I
Yeah.
asked him, I said, how did you survive? And he said, if it wasn't for the loyalty program that he built in the year right before the coronavirus pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
they would have failed because they would have known nothing about their customers except for what we know about moviegoers. But because he built this loyalty program, and again, it's probably like a like, and I need to introduce you to him because you'd be a perfect relationship right there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the largest movie theater chains in the country, actually. He said that it was a very arbitrary system, but just the basic idea of like collecting that data internally, like not
Mm-hmm.
using an outside company. He was explaining this to me yesterday, and he said collecting all that information internally and then being able to like look at it in a nice way, being able to graph it, be able to like manipulate the data and then come up with different scenarios and offers to like get people back in theaters based on their behavior that they collected. And I'm like, are are you doing this with like an artificial intelligence company? Or how are you doing all this? He's like, no, we print shit out, we put it on walls, we draw
Mm-hmm.
like this. But so if you have the largest movie theater company in the world of manually using their data manually,
Mm-hmm.
this industry is ripe, isn't it?
Well, I think every industry struggles with that because for every industry, they just struggle just with their core business, right? Usually, this is something that they delegate to outside experts, right? Usually, they go to the Big Four, they go to Accenture, McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group to say, hey, like, just here's a bunch of money, solve my problem for me.
Mercer, I
Or,
found out too, is a real company
mhm.
now, another consulting one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's definitely a good number of these, right? So, and they would work with these businesses to extract to take that image that you just portrayed. Okay, take all these printouts of where that data is who, and how do you break these different segments of users. How do you attach certain values and rewards and engagement. So that is what every brand struggle with, and then that is actually what we're building in terms of our assassin initiatives that's used to offer smart, pluggable, plug and play solutions that can directly consume the data that's actually stored in our decentralized data cloud. So without this sort of kind of hard and hard nosed approach, you're not going to have the utility and the maturity that our decentralized data cloud will need to have for all the other developers, all the other businesses, right? So
When
we just see this as a sort of a perfect companion of one. You have this new decentralized big data cloud storage, right? Which we pioneered, and we're going to open that up to all the folks, to all the developers, investors to participate in very soon. And then we also have this sort of a specific SaaS focus that focuses on leverage our know-how to directly, not just to use drive the maturity and the tool sets and the proven recipe for this framework, but also provide the initial utility, right, to this network. So I think at this day and age, that's really really needed in the blockchain space.
it is, it's not only needed in the blockchain space, it's needed in every space. I mean, one of the first uh projects that like even I think even to be honest, I think it was even before Ethereum was
Mm-hmm.
storage, and storage A or whatever, storage however you want, and the concept of like decentralized data forever and from Filecoin too, and nothing's coming out of it. So it's like the question is going back to like why is it so difficult to do? Is it a latency thing? Is it a incentivization problem? From the only most of us who who listen to the show probably downloaded from BitTorrent at one point. So the
Mm-hmm.
understanding of how like that works, where all the pieces are all over the world, and the BitTorrent protocol would put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how that works? Is that how decentralized data will work, or is that a barbaric? And understand that my level of education on decentralized
Mm-hmm.
data, it's such a difficult mountain to climb to fully understand the breadth of it, and I'm trying to do that on this show for myself and the listeners too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think this is definitely why we're here, right? So we want to answer, I want to quickly jump into that, which is I think there are two ways to think about decentralization. One is kind of like what, the storage or the, Filecoin try to do, which is make sure that the services provided by all these, distributed nodes, right? That makes up the network, right? So that is the first form, which, we're doing as well. The second form, which is decentralized data, what we mean by that is that data that you onboard and store it onto Cere decentralized data cloud is fully encrypted with your application, the keys that only you as a business or as an application have, and also with potential end consumers key, so that data can be turned over to them in sort of a privacy preserving use cases. But but most importantly, decentralization means that you own that data, right? Even though we're hosting, we don't know what that data is, right? So this is very different than say handing your data over to Facebook, handing your data over
Sure.
to Google, which is how do you ensure that data is not going to be used for some other purpose? How do you ensure that data can be unseen, right? So that itself is a big starting point. So once you have that, then that data can be easily extracted into the open data marketplaces. That is the future of on-demand data science work, which allows see the biggest value that we're unlocking here is that traditionally you have a lot of businesses, and until today, that they can't open their data to just anyone, right? So they have to
Mm-hmm.
build everything to their own detriment, which is something that you will, and other people who have built digital
Well, so,
businesses will know this very well, which is okay, we have to go through the planning process. We have to go through the hiring process of getting people here because we can't let these people touch our, core database, right? I mean, we all know people who got
yeah,
fired
trade
for,
secrets. Yeah, of course.
yeah, we all know people who got fired because they infringed on security policy, where in some cases they, tap into the system and cheated the system. We don't hear about these things. But in traditional, systems, it's easy to say, hey, here's Charlie's ID. I'm going to update Charlie's ledger. I'm going to give Charlie extra, this
Mm.
number of, points in the system, or this number of points of, value, right? So that is very different. That's a very old way of looking at it. So the way that we're establishing decentralization is first you have to free the data from PII, and you have to free the data from the traditional burden and hurdles of ensuring that you have proper governance of that data, right? Which is even more important because you have these automated AI processes, these data-driven processes, right? How do you trust them?
DeFi, DeFi, DeFi. You keep hearing me talk about it, and we know at the same time that the stock market is at record highs, but the economy is broken in recession. Government debt is off the charts. They're printing trillions of dollars. We need a new financial system, and I've been talking about it. We've all been talking about it. Decentralized finance. We know that too. We know that there's like $40 billion in value sitting in all these DeFi protocols, and it's barely a year old. It's new decentralized finance, and it's brilliant, and it works. And there's a lot of money to be made in things like yield farming, being able to provide liquidity, but a lot of them are high risk. There's scams and rug pulls that are so common to investors. We don't want to repeat what happened a few years ago in the crypto space. But what if there was a way to access those DeFi yields in a safe and transparent way? Well, I have the CEO, Tim Frost of Yield.app, my newest sponsor on the show. Listen to that show and check out Yield.app, because here you have this team that is constantly filtering through all these DeFi investments. They're consolidating your gas fees, and they're only investing in a select few that generate more than 20%. But their risk is they're not just investing in these tokens and waiting for them to do well. They're also providing liquidity. They're doing yield farming, all these low risk, high investment to make the infrastructure more efficient and better. So not only you're investing in making money, but you're also helping to grow this ecosystem. Make sure you check them out at yield.app. That's yield.app. And listen to the Untold Stories with Tim Frost, the CEO. We have all these coins and tokens, and they sit on all these different blockchains, and we have to keep multiple wallets and different addresses and everything. And the only way to do it without having to do that is trust a centralized place like an exchange or a broker or an app that you use. Well, what if there was a way to do it without having to trust one different place in the ethos of crypto? Cosmos, my sponsor Cosmos, that has been around for so long, they're actually following their original roadmap and being able to offer universal wallet, high node synchronization, inter-blockchain communication, bridging Bitcoin and Ethereum together and keeping it all on one wallet, being able to build on top of it and do the coolest things possible. Make sure you check them out at stargate.cosmos.network. You can play with all these different features. It's so cool, and it's really bringing the next wave of crypto and adoption. If you really want to be ahead of everyone else and all your friends, make sure you understand the new technology that's coming out. Stargate.cosmos.network. You're going to love it. The biggest problem with DeFi today as we know it is there are simply no aggregators or way to bring all of this information and data together so we can trade off of it. We're going to Uniswap and we're clicking sell, 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 or buy, buy, buy. I mean, imagine staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning just so you can make a trade. The folks at Paraswap, my newest sponsor, are doing exactly that. They are the fastest and most liquid aggregator on the Ethereum blockchain. They've built a state-of-the-art algorithm that aggregates all the major decentralized exchanges in order to beat the market price. They are willing to offer you on your first swap a 50% gas refund. Check it out in the show notes. I mean, there's no reason not to use PowerSwap. It's the same thing as using any of these other sites, but you're getting a better price, zero slippage, better swap, safer, faster, more secure. What's the downside? There is none that I could think of. And you're getting your first swap 50% gas fees paid for. It solves every problem that I could think of. Make sure you check them out. They're my sponsors. I love them, and I love them even more that they're pushing crypto forward.
Yeah.
Well, how does it work then? If you have the one key is encrypting it, and all the data is all over, but it's all encrypted. How do you choose who to allow what data to be shared when? Like, how do you all those different metrics and options and specifics? How do
Uh-huh.
you do that? And then how do you
Very,
allow? Yeah,
very good question. So beauty of blockchain is basically the most powerful part of blockchain is the asymmetrical encryption, right? The whole idea is that a piece of data could be encrypted with my key, with your key, and with this application key, right? Or public keys, right? And then
oh, yeah. I see where
yeah,
you're going with this.
but yeah, but you hold the private key that you don't need to share. You just need to sign, provide a sort of a temporary signature that can be allowed, for external process to access what you designate that person should have access to, right? So basically, you could say, I only want to share this
Yeah,
part of my user base. I want to share these attributes, right? This is a perfect answer to where you were just talking about with medical records, right? People
it's
don't
exactly
need to
that's what I
know
was
everything
thinking
about
about.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But that is very hard to do for two reasons, right? The two things that we're solving. One is how do you address the throughput issue, right? You have networks like Ethereum. While it's amazing in terms of, you know, like securing assets, securing data, securing, smart conditional money, but it's overcompensating for that and forsaking the sort of throughput and
Yeah, it's a lever system. When one goes up, the other goes down. The latency, the throughput, it's slower when you're
yeah,
securing
exactly.
on.
So every single transaction has a payment model behind it, and
Yeah,
all the participants of the network, right, millions of computers around the network, has to all agree that say, hey, we all participate in a consensus, right? So it's extremely secure, extremely redundant, extremely anti censorship and or resistant. But it's never going to work for enterprises, right? So how we design our system is that we leverage the beauty of the blockchain, which is the data encryption, the identity abstraction, right? And at the same time, we have our decentralized data cloud that sort of works like a typical, when you go to Amazon, you say, hey, I want to have some kind of a SLA, which is, the service level agreement that gives me, say, 1,000 transactions per second, and that gives me, this much of transactions that I need to, store, retrieve, and access and encrypt and decrypt data on this cloud. So that is our system is designed for, and then that's why we've just been building for the last 2 years since we were came out of a Binance incubation 2019, and even just now we start to really talk about, okay, this is what we're doing, right, and this is how we're helping solving problems. Um,
what type of marketplace do you kind of see data um being shared in?
oh
And
yeah,
can
okay,
yeah,
so this is something that we're just so excited about. Like, I can't wait to talk about it because we haven't really mentioned it, we haven't publicized it. This is something that we're just waiting for the couple of still the tool sets are being completed to talk about. So the
yeah,
perfect utility and the perfect case that everyone will understand is that for any NFT fans out there, they would love this solution, right? Because right now, what's missing from most of the NFTs is that when you create an NFT, whether it's like say ERC 721 or ERC 1155, token, you basically have this way of transferring to someone else's public address, right? And then also
yeah.
you have this meta tag that points to, okay, where was this asset originally created, right? So that's kind of a way of like provenance, and but that's it. It doesn't really give you token holder any special uh, uh, rights or special things, right? So imagine you have a case where the asset delivery, which is basically what Cere DDC is, secure asset delivery, is which is what Cere DDC is designed for. So when when you purchase this NFT, at the same time, your public key is added to the Cere DDC to a piece of secure data that allows you to see the full visuals of the digital art, or allows you to access the full music video performance, where the live
Oh, so it's like all the data is actually within the NFT itself. It's not just like a representation of the data.
exactly
Wow,
that is what the world's
that's so
missing, and
cool.
that is exactly what
This
secure multi-party shared secure data access
this NFT of me sold for $13,000 last night.
Oh wow.
I know, it's cool though.
Yeah, it's unfathomable, right? So
And then I was at
imagine.
this guy's restaurant last night and he said,
Mhm.
"Charlie, thanks to you, Boatcoin." Isn't that
Wow.
crazy? I don't know if he's actually gonna, I think it's photoshopped.
Sure, but again, I think this is very novel and this is very fun for now. But I think very soon people will want to have the next level of experience, right? What most people don't understand is that you know what I just described is the secret, or is the key missing piece to solve all of the content creators' issues, right?
Yeah.
So we will be launching a couple of experiential platforms. One is mostly focused on performance art, and the other one's mostly focused on visual art. So imagine, so artists, what do they struggle today? They can't monetize really their music videos, right? Like let alone
No,
music
so
videos.
they, because they'll have it at the end of the day, like they can do a token that like they sell 30% of ownership as NFTs, and then like, you could
No, no,
even
no,
have a
no.
legal
There's
mechanism.
actually much better use case. You as an artist, the each NFT could be representing that unique relationship that you have with each individual fan, right? So you could
That's
be
what
launching.
BitClout was trying to do, but that's a scam, I think.
I'm sorry.
There was a like BitClout, but I'm pretty sure it's a
Hmm.
scam. Tried to do like creator coins type of thing.
So each one of these tokens will then become the gatekeeper to certain. Like say, you want to launch a special fan appreciation concert, right? I remember, I think right before Prince died, he had this like special like insider only concert in Oakland, where only like a couple hundred people had this like amazing sort of up close personal
Sure.
uh, audience with them in special performance. So you as an artist now can launch these fan tokens, and you can say only people who purchase my first this series of NFTs, or people who are the first 200 fans of mine, or people who are based in say Brazil, or people who bought these special series of tokens. Now they will be able to connect a wallet that holds those tokens, go to a specially designated live virtual performance website that works with the Siri DDC, and then they'll verify those fans, and then only those fans will be able to see whether it's a virtual exhibit or whether it's a virtual concert. This will change the content game as we know it,
And on
right?
top of that, the Cere network is also like amalgamating and taking all of this data and like collecting it. So the tokens are like the feelers and the collecting points in a way. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
all the data is
the,
and you
the
can
tokens
work.
the
That's so
tokens are just yeah
crazy.
tokens are basically the keys, right? To
Yeah.
allows you.
Yeah.
And it also identifies who you are, like as part of that relationship, right? And also the smart contract that issues and transfer the token later on also can guarantee the artist like
Shit,
royalties,
man.
right? Every
You're
time that
talking about a
that they
crazy world that all human beings could be represented as NFTs, and someone, and it's a scary world if you think about it. Like maybe
right,
we are
right,
living in the Matrix. I want to
right,
take
right,
a step back for a second because I started to
mm-hmm,
scare myself a little. Um,
right.
in this industry, and this is actually a question for Kenzie. In this industry, you're very much in the weeds a lot. You're building out very highly technical concepts and um, constantly, but maybe you don't all the time get to see like the enjoyment of someone enjoying what you're building. You don't get that like satisfaction to someone like working in a clothing store or a restaurant, or even someone who builds iPhones. Can see go on TV and see people using iPhones like, oh, I built that. It's exciting. How do you both? And Kenzie, you've been a VC for a very long time. You were involved in Huobi, the general manager there. How do you prevent burnout, especially in crypto? Like, how do you prevent yourselves from getting burned out, especially in the COVID world? How do you take a step back and remain focused, because you're like kind of like going through the forest and you're trailblazing, but you can't really see the forest through the trees all the time, right?
Yeah, honestly, I think a lot of us just love it. I love the excitement. It feels very much so. We're living it. In this incredible time at with very exclusive information flow, and obviously, we all had memories from the bear market. So it feels like this might also be short lived. So
Yeah,
might
there's a
as
fear.
well just power through. So, uh, you know, um, it's a lot of it is fueled by passion and also the excitement about what we are working on. So we've been working on this for 2.5 years. We weathered through a bear cycle, and the team is um, incredibly focused and very humble people that we work with. So in that sense, we're all in this together, and that's also a relief in a way that helps with burnout. Um, so yeah, that's how I feel. Um,
I think that's right. I think that's how I've been prevented from burning out over the last 10 years, as I'm like sleeping in my microphone right now.
Well, I think it's definitely a lot easier now because everyone's, interest is perked up, right? I mean, I just remember
Yeah.
like a couple of years ago, I was walking on the street. I was looking at like, I was feeling like the guy in Matrix, right? And it's like, I can see this pathway to full digitalization, of all these relationships, of, money, of all these like smart way of intertwining those, and no one, 99.99%, like I can't even explain to them, right? Like what we're seeing. But now people are interested. I think that itself is the most exciting part.
The questions are very
exactly.
different now.
Yeah, I rarely go out now because of COVID, and I went to a grocery store yesterday, and on the radio they're talking about NFTs, and yeah, I was like, whoa, mainstream. So this is, yeah, it's the how cutting edge we're working on, and how how the world is seeing it now. It just feels like we're in it at the right time,
Yeah.
and with the right people, and that in a way is very empowering, and that's also what gets us to power through things, and sleeping 3-4 hours a day. And it's an incredible time for people in crypto.
In the past, all these bull and bear markets, yeah, you're right. Like there's a fear. But if you remember, all the bull and bear markets were always like uh stopped because of either like there's some a bunch of frauds or exit scams, or uh you know, news and FUD. But really, what always would stop these bull markets simply and really like not just the term bull market, but just the growth of the overall like industry or market cap or whatever. What stopped that is that you'd have all this attention from people, and I'm talking about like 2013, even 2011. You'd have all this massive attention, and then we'd have nothing to offer. We never. How many people want to
Exactly.
just like store Bitcoin on their phone? Like, yeah, it's great, but like you can't do shit with it, you know? So then Ethereum was conceptualized and talked about, and that was great. And that caused such a price, massive price increase because this technology actually enabled anyone to do anything. But at the end of the day, a lot of it ended up being not vaporware because that's a strong word, but you couldn't like things were conceptualized and talked about a lot of like what if, like let's build this. We're gonna go out and use Ethereum technology to build this and this and this. And there's Ethereum tokens. Everything was we're gonna build on Ethereum, we're gonna build on Ethereum, we're gonna build on Ethereum, we're gonna build on Ethereum. It's constant, right? But we couldn't do it. You can't build sometimes decentralized data on top of Ethereum version one, what it looked like years ago. It wasn't there, right? So now here we are again. People are looking at us. And just like yesterday, I live on a small island in the middle of nowhere with like 500 houses. And I was just walking in my neighborhood, and my neighbor was like, "Come and talk to me about Bitcoin for a second." So we go and talk for an hour, and the conversation is so different. And I said, "Hey, Ed, what did you do before you retired?" And he said, "Well, I actually built futures markets. Like that was my thing. I love building futures markets." I said, "Now I see why this bull market is going to continue, because now if he wants to come in with his 20, $30 million company and build something or put assets into crypto, he can actually have something that he can build. And there's multiple different blockchains and technologies and protocols that they can build on top of."
That's, you're absolutely right, Charlie. I think, the last time it was very different, due to the the both, just technology wasn't there yet. It takes time to build tech, and also secondly is that the public always overestimate, and get overexcited about a technology too early. So there's a mismatch there. But this time around, things are a little bit different. In uh, in in DeFi, there's actual money flow. There's actual returns for investors. In NFT, there's actual usage and mainstream recognition of NFT values now. And in terms of us enterprise adoption, we have been really really focused around that. Since the beginning of the inception of the company, we've always been super adoption focused, and that's why we pride ourselves to be probably the most adoption based company in entire Binance Labs portfolio. So we've been really focused on that, and been working with clients, and also now working with a lot of Fortune Fortune 1000 companies as well, in terms of getting that adoption. And we also touch upon both DeFi and NFT. So really just the kind of realizing this adoption trend in blockchain, and that's kind of our ethos here, and that makes a big difference.
Do you both foresee a world where, how now we're used to, the world is kind of used to using Venmo now, like just, or various apps for money payment. So the world is slowly getting used to, that's just one example, but of doing things on their phone, right? Do you see a
Mhm.
world where like you'd walk into a hospital, or you'd walk into a new doctor, like you go to a dermatologist that you've never seen before, and now on your phone you could potentially share that data, but then also have control of like what data for how long and when. Is that the type of like data emancipation that Cere Network will like bring to us?
Yeah, this is basically what we can already support, right? If we have the right partner, we have the right support, internally, externally, for that. That's something we can start building tomorrow. So that is exactly where the world needs to go, where we have to be able to control and start harnessing like all this, sort of careless way of not treating data as it's a strong obligation and duty, right? To
Yeah,
take care for for your customers.
I see what you're getting at. You're saying that like, no, it's not that we're like we're trying to convince you to give us your data. It's rather, this is already happening now with your
Hmm.
data and your life to all of us.
Hmm.
We want to just go to a new paradigm where this is how it's happening. So you're not needing to like convince people really like to start putting their data in another place. It's
Right.
rather, we want to change the way that we understand our own data ownership, because I know now we're going to get to like a little bit scary, but we're going towards a like very different world. I mean, and people are playing around with installing chips in their hands and
Hmm.
becoming cyborgs, and with technology as we know it in the future to be able to have parts that are 3D printed, we're going to have digital pieces in our brains. So
Hmm.
if we don't start emancipating that data now, if we don't start freeing that data now, it's just going to be a situation where we are controlled. And it's crazy by like the governments.
Yes,
It's kind of
yes.
like a
Well,
conspiracy theory here, but
there's so many angles for you to look at it, right? Basically, this is where the world's headed, right? This is like $1 trillion. It's a huge white space. Everything's moving in the cloud. everything has challenges in both in terms of data onboarding, data segmentation, security governance, who has access to that whole thing. So there's no one who's built something that we set out to build, which is sort of a decentralized big data that focus on individual user customization, segmentation, and customization, and so it allows for a very granular and customized way of sharing user data, right? And also, just that is not just that is not enough. You have to be able to solve certain use cases and provide the toolkits to say, hey, here's a kind of a plug and play solution that can help you to solve this one problem. Like, the problem you mentioned with the movie chain, right? Which is, okay, how do we modernize our engagement strategy with all the consumers, right? So okay, we can launch this new sort of a rewards program that's powered by Cere DDC that has these automation around it, where our AI agents can actually look at, okay, this person hasn't come back to see us theater for this amount of time, or this person that watched this film, and he's most likely anticipating this blockbuster. If we do something engagement now, get to him before this person goes to another
Yes.
movie theater chain. That's how you win. That's
I
how
have the
every single
perfect
business needs to do to win in the
I have the
future.
perfect relationship for you because this gentleman is not just on the board of this movie theater chain, but he's also the CEO of the fourth largest film studio in the world. And I met him because
Hmm.
so my wife's an actress and she's about to shoot a movie in upstate New York in May. And he likes crypto, the CEO. So he saw my wife's name and he tried to get in touch with me and we were chatting yesterday and he's like, I want to go balls deep into crypto. So I gotta like introduce you to him oh my God, this would be a perfect type of relationship, I think, because
Oh
they
yeah, yeah.
already have
Yeah, yeah. With what we're doing on NFTs, with what we're doing with all the potential fan relationships, right? And all of the different
but you can track from before the movie's made, the fan who wants to see it to
mhm.
when the movie's in production. So then when it goes into the theater, this token tracks everything along the way. It's something
Yeah,
like this has never been
you
done before. It's impossible. It's
yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah. No, it's really amazing. I think how it changes the whole content creation process, content distribution process, content like royalty and value chain process, and how every token holder now, before you buy a piece of art, you're hanging out. It's like, hey, anyone come to my house, I can show it off, right?
Yeah.
But now every person is it's a megaphone. They can say, hey, look, check this out. I just own this, and I can show this in its full glory. Right? No one else has. I can do a
Yes.
live. I can do a TikTok. I can do a Facebook live cast. I can do all these cool things around it. Right. So this is what the power of like having everyone down the value chain of NFT, well, everyone who has that relationship with you as the artist to become a true fan.
Freeing that data before it's too late. Fred, Kenzie, thank you so much for taking the time on coming on Untold Stories today. Uh, I think we definitely completed our task that we set out to do at the beginning of the episode, and I appreciate you giving me the ability to do that. Thank you again.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you for
Thank you,
having us.
Charlie.
Look forward
Awesome.
to chatting more.